Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unravel the absolute greatest heist you probably didn't even realize you were a victim of. Over the last 2 centuries, our industrial civilization hasn't just changed how we work or how we communicate, it has systematically stolen our sleep. We're talking about a massive biological robbery here, one that cost the United States alone a staggering $411 billion every single year in lost productivity. But you know, the real cost? It isn't financial. It's playing out in our brains and our bodies every single night.
To put the sheer scale of this crime scene into perspective, one-third of all humans in the industrialized world are chronically sleep-deprived. Without ever actually signing up for it, you and I are participating in literally the largest involuntary mass biological experiment in human history. We've somehow built this entire cultural infrastructure that treats a lack of sleep as some kind of weird badge of honor, completely ignoring what neuroscience tells us is actually happening the second we close our eyes.
Okay, let's dive into this. Dr. Matthew Walker really hits the nail on the head with this one, perfectly summarizing the stakes. Sleep is absolutely not a luxury. It's not wasted time, and it's for sure not a biological design flaw. It is the single most powerful biological reset button available for human survival. I mean, think about this. You will actually die from sleep deprivation before you die from starvation. It is the literal foundation of our immune function, our emotional regulation, and our everyday sanity.
Part 1. The treasure. What we actually lose. A lot of people naturally assume that if you cut an 8-hour sleep schedule down to, say, 6 hours, you're just losing 25% of your sleep, evenly distributed across the board, right? Well, actually no. The architecture of sleep doesn't work like that at all. The first half of the night is heavily dominated by deep, physical repair, but the second half is dominated by REM sleep. So when you set an alarm for 6 hours, you don't just trim your sleep, you forcefully amputate 60 to 90% of your crucial REM sleep. And that is the exact phase where your brain performs its most complex work, like regulating your tricky emotions and synthesizing creative connections.
What's really interesting about this is exactly how physical this whole process is. Your brain has a literal physical overnight filing system. While you're sleeping, these little bursts of neural activity, called sleep spindles, physically transfer the day's experiences right out of your short-term memory and into permanent storage. But if you lose just one single night of proper sleep, this entire filing system totally degrades. In fact, a UC Berkeley study showed your ability to form new memories the very next day drops by a staggering 40%. Pulling it all-nighter basically means you're trying to study with a mental filing system that literally cannot save the files.
Part 2. The arsenal. Weapons of wakefulness.
So for about 300,000 years, human bodies were perfectly calibrated to the sun. Beautiful, right? But then, right around the 1880s, Thomas Edison scales up the commercial light bulb and is actually arrogant enough to declare sleep a cave day heritage. Wild! Fast forward to 1956 and Westclox invents the snooze button, arguably the worst morning invention ever created. Neurologically speaking, it's a complete disaster because it repeatedly triggers these abrupt, jolting stress responses while denying you actual restorative rest. We went from these natural, gentle, light-governed rhythms to an era where we repeatedly and violently shock ourselves awake every 9 minutes.
And the way artificial light has been weaponized against us is incredibly specific. Modern screens emit this very specific 480 nanometer blue spectrum light. So when you're laying in bed staring at your phone, it suppresses melatonin, your sleep-initiating hormone, by up to 50% for a full 3 hours. It is chemically blocking your brain's ability to just fall asleep. In the process, we have entirely destroyed our ancestral biphasic sleep patterns. You know, that natural ancient rhythm of a first sleep, a nice wakeful midnight pause, and then a second sleep. We replaced all that with a chemically suppressed nightly struggle.
Part 3. The chemical cover-up. Caffeine and sedatives. Okay, it turns out there's a massive societal myth we really need to dismantle right now. Caffeine absolutely does not give you energy. I know, shocking. What it actually does is act as an adenosine antagonist. Basically, as you stay awake, this chemical called adenosine builds up in your brain, creating sleep pressure. Caffeine just sneaks in and blocks your brain's receptors from feeling that pressure. The sleep debt keeps building up behind the dam, completely unnoticed. Then, when the caffeine finally wears off, boom, that massive wave of adenosine crashes right down on you. And because caffeine lingers in your system for hours and hours, it completely ruins your deep sleep that night, essentially guaranteeing you wake up in a deficit and need even more caffeine the next day. It is a commercially perfect, totally self-sustaining trap.
And then, on the other end of the day, we have the pharmaceutical industry's multi-billion-dollar solution to all this, sedatives like Ambien. But here is the thing, sedation is not sleep. Sedatives simply render the brain unconscious. They completely bypass those super crucial memory consolidating sleep spindles and all those essential slow wave repair stages we talked about. We are paying billions of dollars for a chemical knockout punch that utterly fails to provide actual restorative sleep.
Part 4. The Casualties. Would we pay? The damage here hits literally every single organ system you have. Getting just 4 hours of sleep for a single night causes a massive 70% drop in your immune system's natural killer cells. Those are the ones that identify and destroy cancer. Chronically sleeping less than 6 hours, that spikes your risk of coronary disease by 48%. If you've been awake for 17 hours straight, your cognitive impairment is legally equivalent to having a blood alcohol content of 0.05%. And this crisis is deeply, deeply unequal. Due to systemic factors, Black Americans average a full hour less sleep per night. Plus, we have 15 million lower-income night shift workers whose schedules are so biologically damaging, the WHO officially classified night shift work as a probable carcinogen. So the crucial point is this major breakthrough that happened in 2013 when science discovered the glymphatic system. Think of this as your brain's dedicated overnight cleaning crew. During deep sleep, the interstitial space in your brain physically expands by 60%, and this system suddenly becomes 10 times more efficient at flushing out metabolic waste. And what kind of waste are we talking about? Amyloid beta and tau proteins. That is the exact molecular debris directly linked to the 55 million global cases of Alzheimer's disease. Put simply, chronic sleep deprivation is a chronic failure to clear out toxic brain waste.
Part 5. The Coverup. Ignored science. Just look at the suppressed science here. We have crystal clear data from the CDC and pediatric academies proving that starting school before 8:30 a.m. severely harms adolescent health. Yet, the vast majority of schools stubbornly refuse to change. The WHO explicitly warns that night shifts cause cancer, yet there's absolutely zero U.S. regulatory action or workplace warnings. Harvard proves that blue light suppresses melatonin, but do any building codes mandate warm evening lighting? Nope. AA shows sleep deprivation impairs driving just as badly as alcohol, yet there is no legal standard for drowsy driving. Modern policy flat out refuses to treat sleep deprivation like the absolute public health catastrophe the evidence proves it to be.
And this brilliantly illustrates the completely absurd economics of our modern 24-hour civilization. First, we lose $411 billion a year in economic productivity directly to sleep deprivation. Then, we turn around and pay $585 billion to a massive sleep industry just to treat the symptoms. And to top it off, we pay nearly $800 billion to the caffeine economy just to mask our sheer exhaustion. We are spending well over $1 trillion to bandage a crisis, all while leaving the structural cause, our stolen rest, completely and totally intact. It's madness.
Part 6. Reclaiming the Sacred Dark.
You know, long before electric lights completely took over, ancient cultures actively revered the dream state. Over in Egypt, they literally built houses of dreams. In ancient Greece, their healing temples treated sleep as the absolute center of all medicine. Indigenous traditions viewed the dream state not just as rest, but as a channel to a foundational reality. And the coolest part? Modern neuroscience now completely validates them. We now know that during REM sleep, your brain acts as this incredible virtual reality simulator, making brilliant associative connections completely free from waking constraints. In fact, subjects woken directly from REM sleep are actually 30% better at complex problem solving. The ancients weren't just being superstitious, they recognized biological magic without even needing an MRI machine to prove it.
Stepping away from our culturally toxic productivity ideology and finally returning to this sacred dark isn't just a nice luxury. It is a profound biological necessity. As this genuinely brilliant report from Alvarez Consulting notes, sleep is not a bridge between 2 days. It is the destination itself. It's literally the only time we are fully restored and deeply connected to our own biological wisdom.
So as we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with a direct question. Look around at all the glowing screens, the blaring alarms, and the empty coffee cups in your life. Who exactly profits from your chronic exhaustion? And much more importantly, now that you're armed with this knowledge, how will you intentionally take back your biology and reclaim the sacred dark tonight? Protect your sleep, everyone. It is quite literally the greatest treasure you have.